Hi everybody, thank you so much for coming to the Vantage Australia webinar today. We're so excited to have you and so excited to have the team from Vantage here with us as well. Before we crack on, I'm just going to begin with an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to hand it over to Andy from Vantage today, if you'd like to get started.
Yeah, guys, hello everyone, Andrew here. Welcome to the Vantage Australia webinar. So just quickly, first note of housekeeping, everyone just on mute, of course, just so we can run through the flow of the webinar and limit sort of background noise. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end as well. So thank you all for joining today and hopefully submitting your expression of interest through the virtual platform. I'm Andrew Hargitay, the Operations Director and co-founder of Vantage, and I'll run through the schedule for today and jump right away with introductions. We have Bill Hargitay here, the founder and managing director of Vantage Australia. Emily McFarlane, obviously the representative from Birchal. And we have joining us today also Dr. Netzinet Shafiro-Tarife. She's the Principal Research Scientist for the CSIRO Agricultural and Food Division. Dr. Netzinet is the lead scientist on our joint research project into Australian native botanicals and their potential applications and enabling technologies. So I'll run through now the format of the webinar and how we're going to operate today. So we'll begin with the origins of Vantage, what we are, what we do, and where we've come from. We'll then move to Dr. Netzinet and discuss the joint research project we have on Australian native botanicals. And a quick note with that, Dr. Netzinet has to jump off the meeting at 1 o'clock. So that's why we're doing that at the start of the webinar there. We'll then discuss Vantage's structure internally, its distribution spread around Australia, including the journey to market. And then we will discuss where we are now and the growth that has brought us to this stage. And then cutting to the chase, figuratively speaking, we'll discuss what we want to do with the investment and our plans with how we plan to grow further. So with that, we'll finish up. We'll have questions at the end. Feel free to ask them directly or to put them into the chat box. So we'll see all the questions that come through and then we'll run through them at the end. If we are pressed for time, we will sort of answer questions that we don't get to in the webinar today via email later on. So we'll get to everyone's questions. So really hope you participate. So first of all, handing over to Bill. Please, Bill, tell us what we do, where we've come from and who we are.
Thanks, Andrew, for that introduction and welcome everybody to our webinar. It's an honour to have the number of people that have registered for it. We're quite blown away by it, so thank you. My name's Bill Hargitay. I'm the founder and managing director of The Spirit of a Nation, our corporate name, trading as Vantage as our brand name. And I guess what we are is a small company. Basically, from startup, it's been Andrew and myself, and we've developed a lot of partnerships that have been very, very good to us and have been very much on the journey with us. Vantage is an original spirit that's been created here in Australia. It's made here in Australia, and we like to think of it as quintessentially Australian. When we created Vantage, the focal point that we had was Australian native botanicals, and that continues to be our focal point going forward, and certainly has been the focal point with the research we conducted with the CSIRO. The product itself is different. We decided that if we were going to go into making an alcohol for Australia, then we wanted it not to be a gin, not to be a vodka, not to be a whiskey, but something that really belonged to us. And the point of difference from our perspective was our Australian native botanicals. And we use lemon myrtle, Tasmanian mountain pepper, which are distilled, and then it's blended with a little bit of oil from Australian grown mandarin skin. So you get a crisp, clear spirit that's equally enjoyable neat as it is in a mixer with your favourite mixer or in cocktails. The inspiration for it came through my previous career. I travelled a lot and spent hours and hours, as you do at airports, waiting for flights and wandering through duty-free locations. And it dawned on me that Australia was never really represented in that premium spirit category. And that representation was something that I thought was a gap in the market. And I thought, well, let's see if we can do something about that. And when I used to own Bryant and May, which is redhead matches, you may know. So I had some experience working with consumer products with that Australian Icon brand, which despite what Dick Smith says, the only time it was Australian owned was when I owned it with my business partner. And that product and the range of the products under that brand sold down the grocery channel. And very much in terms of the alcohol industry nowadays, is very much a key component of the grocery industry. And so I had some bravery in attempting to continue to deal in that segment and to take on probably one of the most competitive industries in the world. When we went to market with Vantage, people were quite interested, but they said, and this main question we get, where is it? Where do we put it? Is it a vodka? Is it a gin? It's something that I've always answered with the following. It's neither. It's neither a vodka nor a gin. It's not a vodka because by definition, vodka is without character, odourless, and basically tasteless. Whereas Vantage has all of those in spades. It's got a beautiful citrus finish from the lemon myrtle. It's got lovely hints of mandarin from the mandarin oil and a beautiful burst of warmth from the Tasmanian mountain pepper. We make it like a gin, but we don't use juniper. And every gin has juniper at its heart, and juniper is not a native berry of Australia. So we don't use that. We've stuck with using only Australian native botanicals in it. And that's where our association with the CSIRO and NetSanet, who's joined us now, has been fantastic. We were given the opportunity to participate in joint research through CSIRO's Kickstart program, which was a matching grant where we had to put some serious funds in as well to access some of the world's best scientists. And we put the challenge to them that Australian botanicals are unique. What are the things that we can do with it in a sustainable manner going forward, both in the alcohol industry, where we're already got a presence with Vantage and a reputation for being an Australian botanical, but also in the alcohol-free space going forward. And the research outcomes and the research project itself that NetSanet headed up has been absolutely astounding. It gives us a blueprint going forward with some wonderful new products that we believe will make a difference to our business as Vantage, to our brand as Vantage, and hopefully to many of you if you join us as shareholders. Now, as Andrew mentioned earlier, Dr. NetSanet is on a time frame because she has to go to another conference at 1 o'clock. So I thought I might, after introducing her, give you the opportunity to ask questions directly, and I will come back to the rest of the Vantage story at the end of that. Thank you.
So Dr. NetSanet, welcome.
Thank
everybody,
you.
You're on mute, Andy.
Sorry, yeah. I briefly introduced Dr. NetSanet, the Principal Research Scientist for the CSIRO Agriculture and Food Division. She was the lead scientist on the joint research project Vantage and the CSIRO conducted into Australian native botanicals and their potential applications and enabling technologies that go with that. So without further ado, I hand over to you, Dr. NetSanet.
Thank you for your remark, Andrew. Yeah, we've been working, it was a privilege to work with Vantage on this particular project. We had a chance to look at the literature on the compositional and bioactive profile of Australian native botanicals and could see a great potential for developing a number of products, beverages and food ingredients and supplements, and as well as ingredients for cosmetics, because of the rich and interesting profile, bioactive profile and flavor profile of Australian native botanicals. There is a great potential in using these botanicals in a number of applications, which would give rise to uniquely Australian products for domestic and export markets. So that's the conclusion of our literature review work and technology review work. And we are now preparing to conduct further work, further research and development work with Vantage to kind of make this vision a reality for Vantage in terms of producing a number of novel products for the Australian market as well as for export using the platform that is already created by Vantage. So that's where we are in the research.
Perhaps I could just ask you a question myself from the research. Could you just say a couple of words about the power of the native botanicals relative to other well-being ingredients, as they say, with comparable antioxidants, vitamins, probiotics, etc., given those fantastic bioactives that the research found relative to the other types of products that are available either from other countries or imported into Australia?
Yeah, so now the golden standard for antioxidant activity are blueberries, and some of the native botanicals, such as the cacao plum, are several times richer in antioxidants than blueberries. So that's one of the interesting facts about Australian native botanicals. The vitamin C content of cacao plum is also several times higher than that of orange juice, for example. So there is a potential for developing supplements or ingredients for supplements, and for example, products like antioxidant shots using these botanicals as an ingredient with potentially superior outcomes. And there are a number of in vitro studies that also shows that some of these botanicals have anti-cancer and other potential health benefits, and that can be further exploited and explored in clinical trials. So there is a great potential in using these botanicals in supplements and food products, foods and beverages.
Thank you.
I think just to expand on that a little bit, Dr. Netzanet, I think to sort of summarize some of the findings with the research, the Australian botanicals that we investigated could not only be used in an alcoholic form in terms of a spirit or a drink, it could be used in non-alcoholic drinks such as soft drinks or kombucha. There were applications for, like you said, antioxidant shots, so more healthy applications, nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals as well. So the research was not just focused on can it be used in another spirit. It was a little bit more broader than that. And the research was very positive in showing that these Australian botanicals that are available and can be used across this really large range of different applications.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Their flavor profiles are quite interesting and quite unique. And again, the nutritional profiles, lutein content, vitamin E content, vitamin C, other antioxidants are very high in these botanicals. So we can potentially produce juices, juice drinks, different types of, mixers, soft drinks as well, using these native botanicals as ingredients. So with richer bioactive profile as a health and well-being products. So there is a great potential for using these native botanicals in different beverage formats. We can also consider producing non-alcoholic fermented beverages, kombucha type, coffee water type, or using, for example, lactic acid bacteria fermentation for further enhancing the bioactive profile of this product. So there is a great potential in using these botanicals in non-alcoholic beverages for different applications.
Not sure if there's any questions from the audience.
I will just remind everyone with questions, there is a Q&A tab down the bottom of the screen. Any questions, please put them in there. If it's directly related to the research with the CSIRO, we can ask NetSenet now and discuss that now. Otherwise, yeah, we'll answer all other questions at the end of the webinar. So we do have a question coming through. The question from Ashley: use lemon myrtle and Tasmanian mountain pepperberries in Vantage right now. Do you have any plans on expanding offering with any other botanicals? So the short answer is yes. Maybe Bill or Dr. NetSenet, you could describe some of the other botanicals that we looked into.
Yes, I think the research covered a lot of native botanicals, and the opportunities are there, as Dr. NetSenet has outlined. Underlining all of that, though, is sustainability. And one of the key components will be in terms of what botanicals we can work further with the CSIRO to develop some of these exciting products. We'll want to make sure that they're sustainable and sustainably harvested going forward, and also that we get input from the communities that they're harvested through in a sustainable manner, and ensure that there's ongoing supply and also some sort of benefit to the communities involved as we go forward, especially if we're successful and there's reasonably large volumes of whatever additional products we put out there, to ensure that there's potentially employment opportunities too in agriculturally farming some of these native botanicals. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Dr. NetSenet.
Yeah, there are opportunities to use a number of these botanicals for different applications other than what has been used or have been used by Vantage. Some of these include, for example, kakadu plum, kwandong, mantris, and so on. And that would depend, the selection would depend on the type of product that we are targeting. If we are going for a well-being type of product, kakadu plum would be one of the candidates. If we are going for both well-being and maybe fermented products, we might go for, kwandong and others. But there is definitely potential for using some of these botanicals for different applications, the ones that haven't been used so far. So that's what we are considering anyway in further research and development.
To add on to that, NetSenet, you're saying, a lot of Australian botanicals haven't been used so far, especially in a wide sort of commercial sense. And that, for Bill and I, was one of the things that spurned, sort of began this research, because, Australia, especially in agricultural and food sense, is very Eurocentric. And in comparison to Europe, native plants that are registered on the International Plant Index, there's about 4,000 to 5,000 individual plants commonly found in Europe that can be used in this manner. In Australia, on the Australian National Plant Index, I believe there's over 20,000 individual plants that can be used in a similar fashion. So Australia has such a wide-ranging base from which to work with, and a lot of it hasn't been used widely yet. And then that's part of what the research is that we're doing, is to see, where these botanicals that haven't really been discovered in that commercial sense can be used in some very sort of wide-ranging applications.
Yeah. I think as both Bill and Andrew mentioned, there are issues in terms of sustainable supply. So one of the places where we can work is working with Indigenous communities to kind of encourage cultivation of these botanicals, or at least some of the targets, increase supply, but also make sure that supply matches demand, and that we kind of add value in a way, and also have some return for the communities that use them for centuries, and also would be cultivating them down the line. So I think we need to make sure that there is benefit to throughout the supply chain, from upstream through pre-processing, processing, and distribution. So
we have a question for you, Bill and NetSenet. Does Vantage have an agreement with the CSIRO so that Vantage is the sole beneficiary of the research, that the CSIRO undertakes in Australian native botanicals?
I can answer that in terms of the existing project that we've done to date. The intellectual property, if there's anything, excuse me, coming out of that, would be Vantages. Going forward, the CSIRO is the organisation we plan to go forward with, and as Dr. Netson has said, there's that agreement to go forward. What we'll find going forward with these unique new areas we're exploring may result in some sort of additional participation by the CSIRO, but that's something that we'd have to look at in the future.
Yeah. So any new IP that would be generated through potential collaborative projects with Vantage through Kickstart and other programs would be owned by Vantage. We would still retain the right to do research in other applications, but for a particular application that we will be doing within or for Vantage, the IP would lie with Vantage. So yeah, everything that we do for Vantage would be owned by Vantage. That's the model that we normally use.
Thank you.
Another question coming through for you, Bill, from Darren is, are there native botanicals used only grown in Australia? Lemon myrtle, for example, is grown in Malaysia. So maybe speak to the sustainability again with what we plan to do.
Sure. I mean, if you look at that sort of spread of plant life, I mean, juniper is grown in Australia, so it's used in every gin, and it's the juniper that's grown in Australia, I imagine, I haven't really studied it, that's used in all the gins that are made here. But that doesn't take away from the fact that juniper is not a native Australian berry. It's a Northern Hemisphere berry. The same way any lemon myrtle grown in Malaysia will not be an Australian lemon myrtle, which is what we would use and we do use in Vantage. Any other questions in there, Andrew, for Dr. Netsonet, conscious of time?
We have some general questions that we'll go through at the end. In terms of botanical questions, nothing coming through at the moment. I think generally we're very excited with some of the work that we're doing with the CSIRO, but also additional research that you and I have done, Bill, on Australian botanicals. We've had a lot of different tasting sessions with some botanicals that we've sourced ourselves that have shown some really interesting flavors and things that I think aren't currently available on the market. We've experimented with sandalwood, with bubalia, with different types of myrtles that are available, and it's a really exciting segment that we're in at the moment with all the Australian botanicals that we're playing around with.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we found interesting with Australian native botanicals is that there are a lot of native botanicals used in other products in Australia, but in that alcohol segment, most particularly in gin, and some of the gins have the Australian native botanical flavours coming through. Our point of difference is that we will only use native botanicals, and we've gone one step further in our research with the CSIRO. With Vantage, as we've advised previously, we don't get any, I should say we don't get enough alcohol from the distillation processes of lemon myrtle and the Tasmanian mountain pepper. So effectively, we make it like a gin. We infuse the beautiful botanical flavours into a neutral grain alcohol because there's not enough alcohol from those botanicals. And grain alcohol or sugarcane alcohol or potato alcohol, they're all from introduced species into Australia. So for us, I guess one of the holy grails in talking with CSIRO and Dr. Netsonet was to actually create the whole product, including the alcohol from Australian native botanicals. And I think without going into proprietary details, it's something that we think now we can do effectively. Would you concur with that, Dr. Netsonet?
Yes. There is potential there.
Great.
So, well, Dr. Netsonet, unless there's any other questions, we know you're pressed for time and you have another engagement at 1 p.m. Did you have any closing notes that you'd like to add?
No, I see, a great potential in this venture. I also see the need for integrating upstream part of, like the growing part of the growing and cultivation with what you do in Vantage. And I know that you are planning on engaging also Indigenous communities in that respect. So yeah, I see a great potential for production of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages and other products for domestic and international markets, as long as we can sort of ensure sustainable supply of target botanicals.
So
Yeah, good luck with everything. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today and participating from me and Andrew also, I think.
I appreciate it, Dr. Netzinet. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So everyone, we'll push on with the webinar. Probably back to business as usual with Vantage and how we're working through. So again, questions in the Q&A box. We'll try to get to them as we go through. But leading on to this question, Bill, Vantage's structure internally, its distribution and spread around Australia, including our journey to market. If you could let people know a bit more information around that.
Sure. Our journey to market took probably about 3 or 4 years from the conception of the idea. And as I mentioned, the idea was born for me from two aspects. One, from seeing a gap in the market where, given our fantastic reputation as a country for our wine, for beer, for our food and beverage products in general, there was nothing in that spirit segment from Australia that travelled. So I thought, okay, that's something we can look at. But then the second aspect of it was, I have relations and friends overseas, business acquaintances overseas, and honestly, what could I take to them that said this was from my country and I can share it with you? A stuffed kangaroo, maybe once, a stuffed koala bear, maybe twice, packet of Tim Tams, never, not for me anyway. But I found that with the product that we wanted to develop, and we did launch in the duty-free segment first, it was something that you could take overseas, whether you're a business person going to a business meeting or you're seeing relatives or friends overseas. You can say with your hand on your heart, this is from our country, made with our native botanicals, and we want to share it with you. Equally, pre-pandemic, there was something like 15 million people travelling through the duty-free shops. Roughly 50% of Australians going overseas and another 50% coming this way to visit our beautiful country. And what better thing to take back if you visit it here as a memento of our country than a product that you can share. And we found that our growth in duty-free was quite rapid. The downside of that has been the pandemic and our border closures. So that has impacted our revenue in those 2 years, because clearly our sales went from very good in duty-free to zero. And we're starting to see a pickup now. So we've already got promotions booked in Sydney Airport duty-free at Heineman's, and also Melbourne duty-free with Dufree. The journey itself started when we knocked on, I guess, Dan Murphy's door many times. Finally, we got an audience, and Dan Murphy's they have a tasting panel, I believe, that tastes any product that they put on shelf. And the response we got was quite interesting. It was too good to knock back. So they actually bought a job lot from us, and they matched it with what they thought the Vantage profile would be. So they put it into a number of Queensland stores as a job lot buy from us. And that's where the journey started. Andrew, myself, his brother, and some of our partners went up there, and we visited just about every Dan Murphy store we could within the area that we could get through in the period of time. And we found that probably about 9 or 10 stores had sold out within the first week, because people, A, liked the product, and B, liked the story behind it as an Australian product. And from that small start, Dan Murphy's put us initially into 30 stores nationally, which gave us a bit of a springboard, because we could point to customers to say, well, you can get it here. Not many stores, but it is available. And from that, we went on to, from the 30 stores, they took us to 90, then 120, and now we're in all 258 stores nationally. Same way in duty-free, the journey began with actually Adelaide duty-free. They put us in, then Sydney followed, Melbourne followed Sydney, and now we're in all the duty-free stores except Brisbane at this stage. We're still working on Brisbane, but we're also in New Zealand, Auckland, Queenstown and Christchurch. And more recently, our journey, which was again delayed because of COVID, we saw an opportunity to take Vantage to the US. And we went through quite a rigorous testing program with the FDA over there, the TTB, which is the Alcohol and Tobacco Board, to get label approval, formula approval to launch the product. We visited there. We found a good partner in terms of our importer. We appointed a brand ambassador. And then COVID happened and it all stopped because of the seriousness of the COVID outbreaks. But we decided finally to activate the launch about midway through last year, and it's starting to show some decent signs of life. We're in about 8 locations now in California, available online in wine.com. So our journey continues with exports, and here in Australia, we want to expand our activity in the on-premise segment. We're in some very good marquee on-premise locations at the moment, but we want to expand that area, and we certainly want to expand our distribution to other packaged retail outlets as well.
Thank you for that. And just to add to that as well, Vantage previously has exported not just to the US, but to Europe, Singapore and China as well. So there is a global spread of Vantage that, coupled with the duty-free, we sometimes like to think that we've gotten a bottle to almost every country around the world. So,
in fact, sorry, Andrew, if I could add to that, we got a lovely email last week during our expression of interest from a gentleman in Cambodia, saying he's got Vantage over there. I'm not sure how he continues to get it, but it was really lovely to hear that Vantage is even being enjoyed in that part of Asia.
So I think it's a good segue now to sort of cut to the meat of the webinar, which is what we plan to do with the investment, what we're asking for, what we want, and what we plan to do with the money to grow further. So, Bill, please let us know.
Well, a little bit of it was covered during our discussions with Dr. Netzinet, but there are a number of things. I assume people who are participating today have read our profile, but our objective is twofold, really. One is to continue to build our position as the spirit of a nation. We strongly believe in that. And we believe that if the Australian community gets behind it, it will be that. And that's not to say that, people should only drink Vantage. It's a lovely alternative to gin and vodka and a nice alternative to have on your shelf at home. But part of the proceeds of this capital raise, if it's successful, will be to continue to expand Vantage. We would probably use part of the funds to put on someone to visit the on-premise locations on a regular basis to build our on-premise business. And the other aspect is to continue with our exports and support the growth of Vantage as an export product for ourselves, but also for Australia, hopefully. If you look at the small steps that the wine industry took back in the late 50s, early 60s to what it is now, we might get there as well with Australian native botanicals. It might be a little bit beyond my lifetime, but Andrew is very capable of continuing it. But the other component, which is the major aspect of our capital raise, is the things we discussed with Dr. Netzinet. The research really does give us some opportunities to put some creative products into the marketplace. Now, putting a new product into the marketplace, as we know with the original Vantage, takes quite a bit of funds to take the research through to the end conclusion, where you've got product that you can put in front of consumer tasting panels, get the reaction of those panels, modify your product again to ensure that there's consumer acceptability of your product, then to take all the other aspects of putting together the right packaging, details, supporting the product, going to the trade. We've got all these lovely opportunities, but as a small business, we couldn't afford to put a lot of those products into the market. So that's why we're coming to you as potential investors to say there's something worthwhile here and we'd love to have you on board.
Thanks for that, Dad. So, look, I think a lot of the questions I think people have been answered, but we can run through some questions now from people in the chat. I am noticing the time. It's been going on for a little while, so I don't want to keep people for too long. A question originally from David is, there's a well-established market segment for health-based botanical drinks in soft drinks and the flavored water segments. And that's the question. I think to expand on that, I think he's saying it's a competitive marketplace for alcohol and obviously other beverages. What do we plan to do to differentiate ourselves, to have a competitive advantage over other brands?
We've got, well, that particular segment, I should say first, is a growing segment. I mean, kombucha as a component of that segment it's not new, but it's relatively new in terms of the alcohol industry in particular. Where we would differentiate ourselves is absolutely on the wellbeing capabilities of the Australian botanicals in the product. Now, that can be in a fermented type approach like with kombucha, as it does, and I have absolutely no doubt that the botanicals bioactives would be very competitive to anything else out there in the market in terms of consumer appeal if they're looking for wellbeing benefits. As Dr. Nett also said, with things like an antioxidant shot perhaps or other approaches. But I have great confidence in the fact that a non-alcohol based product, perhaps under the Vantage label, could straddle both the traditional grocery segment where non-alcoholic products are sold, but also into the alcohol retail segments where there's a growth in non-alcohol based mixers, non-alcohol based spirits in inverted commas, which mimic your gins and your vodkas. And if we can find the right ingredients with the not lemon myrtle, but Australian native botanicals, perhaps lemon myrtle, then I'm sure we have a positioning that we can use it already with the Vantage umbrella in the alcohol retail segments and in on-premise segments, but also market that into the mainstream grocery areas and independents.
Fantastic. We have a question from David, and I know you're going to love this one, Bill. Are there any examples in the rest of the world of such drinks in the alcohol spirit sector? So I believe David's referring to unique drinks that maybe fit outside existing categories.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite interesting because when we first started our journey, the first question we'd get is, what is it? And people very much wanted to straitjacket Vantage into, it's got to be a gin, or it's got to be a vodka, or it's got to be a rum. Well, the answer, it doesn't have to be. Australians like to do things differently anyway, and that was our intention. But if I look at some other existing products out there, you take something like Southern Comfort, known by the name of the brand, globally known by the name of that brand, but it's not a whiskey, it's not a bourbon, it's not a scotch, it's a spirit, probably a white spirit that's been flavoured with different flavourings to give you that Southern Comfort. So it doesn't fit into any category neatly. It's just known as Southern Comfort. If you look at a product like ouzo, it's known as the Greek national drink. Is it a vodka or is it a gin? No one really asks. It's just ouzo, the Greek national drink. Well, Vantage can be just Vantage, the Australian national drink. If you look at something like famous vodka, Ciroc vodka, a lovely vodka, it's made from grapes as a grape base, but you don't call it a grappa. We don't call it a brandy because it's made from grapes. It's called a vodka. And the list goes on. So there's plenty of different products out there that don't easily fit into categories. Now, people have also said to us, what a mouthful, a category called Australian Native Botanicals. And I agree, that's a mouthful, but I can't think of a better category at the moment to class our products other than botanicals. And there are other botanicals out there, eau de vies with botanicals, but none with the purely Australian native botanicals that Vantage positions itself.
Thanks for that, Bill. So a cheeky question coming through from Mark. He says, I bought a bottle in Sydney duty free before returning to the East Coast US. The family became addicted, I hope in a good way. Now I can't get a bottle. If I invest, can someone ship me a case?
Yes and yes. We already have Vantage in the US. So what was the gentleman's name? Mark. So if Mark would like to let us know his details of where he is in the US, We've got product in the US. There's different laws applying to different states, and you can't always ship by mail to different states from online stores in the States as we can here. But I'm sure we could find a way to get some Vantage to him and his family.
That's a great little segue, guys. Do you have any investor rewards that you'll be offering?
Yes, we're looking at in our offer document that'll go out next week. We've put in there a schedule of offers based on the level of investment, which will give people a discount according to their level of investment on products, both with the current Vantage and potentially with any new products we would put out there for a period of time.
Terrific. And are you going to be communicating with your investors quarterly after your raise is complete, or how often will you be updating them on the progress of Vantage?
We'll have a continual communications with our shareholders and our customers on our website. There's a news segment, but once this capital raise is finished and we see where we end up, we might add something else into our webpage, which is specifically shareholder communications. If that's the way it's done, we're kind of new to it, and depends on how many shareholders we have, but we believe strongly in communications both ways. So if we get ideas from the people that join us as shareholders, we always welcome that.
Great. And as your product is, as you said, quite an original product, are there any risks that people could possibly copy the recipe or the product itself?
If they did, I would welcome it, because they say that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. I believe there's a new category to be had here outside of that. And if you go into some of the big alcohol retailers, they're already doing that based on geography. With wines, for example, you'll see, big billboard up in the store saying Australian wines, Chilean wines, American wines, Italian wines, etc. And I think as people recognise that there is a category here and new entrants come in, it'll help grow the category, and hopefully it'll be a positive on our business, because we're the first entrant and we've created this category.
Yeah, amazing.
We have a further question from Alfredo. He says, are you looking at diversifying the Vantage spirit in other products? It would be nice to see it as a soft drink as well, for example.
I think there's opportunities, given the unique flavour of Vantage that people quite readily comment on once they've tasted it, to take Vantage down several paths. I mean, for example, there's been a growth now with soda water or seltzer, as was introduced from the US, with different flavourings in it. Now, Vantage, I think, with its citrusy notes from the lemon myrtle and the mandarin, would be a brilliant product as a seltzer in a can type approach, as a ready-to-drink product. So that's an opportunity that might avail itself going forward. Vantage may also, the current formulation may also prove to be effective with perhaps some additional botanicals added to it as well. For example, a finger lime type product that gives it some lime notes on top of its current citrusy notes would be a great opportunity. And these are some of the things, as we go down the R&D with the CSIRO, we would explore.
Thank you for that. I'd invite anyone else. That's all the questions we have for now. If anyone else would like to ask a question, please put it into the chat now. Obviously, we are available, and speaking to a previous question about communication to our investors, we've listed our emails and our phone numbers on the EOI and openly on our website as well. So not just now in the Q&A, not afterwards during the EOI period or the investment period, but anytime as customers or investors, we invite you guys to contact us. We love chatting to people about the product. It is something that we really put our heart and soul into. And if people would like to talk to us about it, it's always welcome.
Absolutely. Agree with you.
So we have one more question coming in from Mark in East Coast US. He says, are there any worries in scaling for the company or production?
No, the only limitation is the funding resources that we have to bring to it. In terms of our production, we're able to make Vantage in batches of 10,000 litres up to 20,000 litres, and we can continue to do that with the partners we have for our bottling. So there's no issues there. An issue that is there right now, and I hope it'll start to ease, is the lead times with supply because of container issues, shipping issues, etc. But one of the opportunities for us to absolutely maintain our Australian positioning, and I know a lot of wine companies do this, that export, for example, to the US, is to make the spirit here, ship it in bulk containers in a liquid form, and then bottle in the US under the auspices of made in Australia. So we keep that position with native botanicals, but hopefully shortcut the supply chain issues by being able to bottle it over there and make sure we maintain supply.
Thank you, Bill. We've got a comment coming in from Gary. He says, I suggest that you don't concentrate on the US. Southeast Asia, e.g. Vietnam and Thailand, in my experience, would love it. So maybe you can speak to Bill some of our other export efforts into Singapore, for example, and China.
Sure. I mean, China was developing quite well for us, as an export approach. Both Andrew and I exhibited it in Pro Wine in China in 2018, I think that was.
Correct.
And the reception in China was fantastic. Now, if you know the China market, it's one of the biggest alcohol spirit markets in the world, but 80% of that market is Chinese baijiu, Maotai spirits. And the other 20% is all other spirits. But in that all other spirits category, the younger generation of Chinese consumers will love cocktails, and Vantage is superb as a cocktail base. So we know when we do tastings at the airports, the younger Chinese people love it. And we were getting some good transactional export opportunities to do that post-Pro Wine. Since the pandemic and some of the issues that have arisen there, that has slowed down. But your suggestions, or the person's suggestions regarding Southeast Asia, Vietnam and Thailand, we haven't focused on those areas yet, but absolutely no reason why we can't, and would as our product offering and our capabilities go forward. I mean, one of the other areas for us is international duty-free. We focused on duty-free only in our Australian market locally, and that's been a resource constraint as well. But if you look at the big global duty-free operators, the same organisations that have the duty-free licences here in Australia are the same operators in a number of countries, including in Asia, Middle East and Europe. And you can buy other countries' national products in all of those duty-free stores, then why not Australia's going forward?
Excellent. We have a couple more questions coming through now. Zara asks, where can we access the financials for the company? So maybe, Bill, you could discuss the investor document coming out shortly.
Yes, the process for that, and maybe Emily can speak to that as well, is that once the expression of interest period is concluded, there'll be an offer document going out to people who've expressed an interest, and that has a lot more detail about us, about our business, including our accounts.
So everybody who has expressed interest in the offer will on Tuesday receive an email, and it will take you through to the offer campaign where you can look at the offer document, which will contain a lot of things such as the financials, the business plan, and your valuation as well.
And to lead into another question from James, he does ask our valuation that we're working on for the raise and how we came to that valuation figure.
Again, that's something that I think is best left to the offer document. We have some very valuable IP in Vantage, we believe, not the least of which is some of the research outcomes that we own through the CSIRO work, but also in the rest of the business with our trademarks and with recipe formulations, etc. So we believe the company's value is quite significant, and and the details of our minimum subscription and maximum subscription are all in the offer document.
Thank you for that. We have another question coming through from Zara. Are we thinking of getting social influencers, local artists as brand ambassadors? Maybe that's something that I can answer because I'm a little bit more in tune with the social medias. Sure. We have worked previously with some brand ambassadors and social media personalities, I guess you could say. Most noticeably being the Margarita Mums, who is quite a well-known follower. She has, I think, over 100,000 followers based in mainly Australia and the US. Based in Parkdale, I believe, in Victoria. So we have quite a close relationship with her, and it's been a really good one as well. But other influencers, other sort of cocktail people who make drinks and use Vantage have either talked with us, worked with us, and made some really interesting things that we've then brought into our cocktail books, into recipes that we push out to on-premise and to our customers as well. So it's something that we've done before, something that we'll continue to do and continue to do into the future.
Great.
Another question, Luke asked, do we get a sample?
Yes, at your nearest Dan Murphy. No, you can shop online at our store. We've got a special on at the moment, I think, Andrew.
With our store, yeah. If you're in this webinar, please, and you're interested in Vantage, of course, if you would like to purchase Vantage 10 in all capital letters with the numbers 10, if you use that on our store, 10% off for you guys. But in terms of free samples, something that we've done previously and that we're working on again at the moment is the Good Food and Wine Show, which is obviously the food and wine expo that goes to all the capital cities, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane and Perth around Australia. That's not been going on at the moment because of COVID, but something that we've done previously and something we plan to do again in the future, whether this year or next. And with that, we love to see people coming up to us. A lot of them are customers that we've known for a while that are buying from us either online or at Dan Murphy's. And at those stands, we love to give samples away. We're pouring drinks, we're making cocktails, and we're really interacting with everyone. So yep, if you become an investor, you'll see where we are, what we're doing, and hopefully we come to your capital city and we can see you in person one day as well and give you that sample.
Right.
Cool. And what does the next 12 months look like for Vantage?
Well, if our capital raise is successful, and we have every reason to believe that it will be, then the next 12 months is going to be quite busy. We will be focusing on developing some of these joint research projects with the CSIRO to conclusion. Whether it depends on the quantum of the capital raise, whether we can run with one product or more products at the same time. It might have to phase that. So there'll be plenty of activity in that area. We've got activity already scheduled in the duty-free stores where we have dedicated promoters that work for us on a casual basis. And we've got what we call gondola end promotions, where Vantage will be on the end of an aisle with tastings for all passengers going through, and that starts in April, going through to June. We're already doing what we call a mix and match promotion with the Melbourne airport at the moment, limited passengers, but they're coming back. The mix and match promotions allows someone to buy a bottle of Vantage and then match that with another product of their choice at the same value, which is designated by the duty-free stores. So it's a nice, easy way to try something different and perhaps still buy your favourite drink at the same time. So that's a good way to get a sample of Vantage. The other area will be keeping us busy is the US. We're gaining more and more support with stores. We've got a brand ambassador who's looking to do tastings in stores as those abilities come back in the US to be able to do that, and to put on additional distributors where our importer is directly based, which is in New York. So that's fairly active.
That's great. Do we have any more questions to finish off today? Been a very active audience today, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'll add my thanks to everyone as well, and just also our invitation to you at a personal level to come and join us and be a shareholder and work with us to take Vantage to be the spirit of a nation and also to take a taste of Australia to the world.
Beautiful. Thank you
I'd
guys.
like to, yeah, sorry, Millie. Just to everyone, if you have a question, if it pops up, I'd like to reiterate our availability through the EOI profile and our email on our website. Please contact us. We're happy to answer any and all questions you may have. Obviously, the investor document coming out on Tuesday has a lot of detailed information in it. If you need clarification, if there's something that you're questioning or you'd like to discuss further, please send us an email. We're always happy to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrew, and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, guys.